The story of Halo begins 100,000 years ago, when an ancient civilization, known as the Forerunners, found itself besieged by an alien parasite known as the Flood. After all strategic options failed, the Forerunners resorted to the Halos, an array of 7 rings capable of destroying all life in the galaxy. These rings were activated, wiping out all life and taking the Flood with it. But not all was lost. The Forerunners reseeded the galaxy, having taken samples and living specimens of thousands of species from hundreds of planets. With time, the galaxy was aflush with life again. And as more time passed, the species would once again take to the stars, even encountering one another. 2 of these species, the Sanshayum and the Sanghili, formed a covenant and began worshipping the long-dead Forerunners as gods, thinking the Halos to be devices that would propel them along a great journey toward transcendence. As they searched the galaxy for Forerunner artifacts, other species were encountered, either being absorbed into the Covenant or destroyed. In the year 2525 on the human calendar, the Covenant encountered humanity and declared them heretics, an affront to the gods. And so began the Human Covenant War. While the Covenant had superior technology, humanity was not without defense. Its own brilliant tacticians, leaders, scientists, and the Spartans. Begun in secret a decade before, the Spartans were originally meant to quell human rebellion, but instead proved to be the ultimate weapon against the Covenant. The war lasted almost 30 years, and even with the Spartans and their colonies spread across the stars, humanity was brought to the brink of extinction. Then, on September 19th, 2552, the Halcyon-class cruiser, the Pillar of Autumn, carrying what was believed to be the last Spartan, stumbled upon what the Covenant had been seeking for centuries, a halo. After crashing on the ring, the Spartan, Master Chief John 117, and his AI companion Cortana rallied together with other surviving human forces and held their own against the Covenant. Battle raged across the ring world between humans and Covenant, though both would find a terrible secret hidden on the ring: the Flood. Though most of the Autumn's crew would die during this campaign, the ship's destruction would deal a terrible blow to the Covenant and wipe out the local Flood infestation. And yet, it seems it was too late. Just a month after the Halo event, the Covenant found Earth, humanity's last stronghold. A small fleet invaded Earth on October 21st, 2552. Blowing past the planet's orbital defenses, this invasion force, led by the Sanshayum hierarch Regret, only landed for a few hours before opening a slipspace portal above the African megacity of New Mombasa. Though the invasion was brief, it would leave the Earth vulnerable to further attack. On November 2nd, Regret, tailed by the human cruiser in amber clad, found its way to a second Halo ring, and a new battle broke out on its surface. Here, the Flood outbreak was far worse, with the Flood having formed a compound intelligence known as the Gravemind. Over the course of the battle, the Sangheili found themselves betrayed by their Sanshayum leaders and formed an alliance with humanity. Together, these two species were able to mount a strong offensive against the Covenant and the Flood. With his enemies distracted, the last Sanshayum hierarch, Truth, fled the infested ring, heading for Earth. Buried deep beneath the planet was an ancient Forerunner artifact, a portal that led to the Ark, the forge and activation point for the entire Halo array. Thankfully, the alliance of humans and Sangheili were able to thwart his plan, killing Truth, breaking up the Covenant, and eliminating the Flood once and for all. Sadly, Master Chief Spartan John 117 and his companion Cortana did not make it back to Earth, instead finding themselves stranded in the aft section of a ship, drifting in space. John entered cryosleep, while Cortana dropped a distress beacon, hoping that they might one day be rescued. 4.5 years passed, and as the galaxy moved forward, the Chief slept. On July 21st, 2557, Cortana woke the Chief up as she found their ship invaded by Covenant forces. This was not the strangest thing though, as the pair found themselves in the presence of an artificial Forerunner planet. They, along with a number of Covenant vessels, were sucked inside. After a rough landing, the Chief discovered that Cortana had entered rampancy, the end of an AI's life, when it would start to break down and eventually die. Pressed for time, the Chief was determined to find a way to save his partner, and that meant getting back to Earth. Though they originally planned to steal a Covenant ship, they found that a UNSC vessel, the Infinity, had discovered their distress beacon. The pair made their way to the core of this world, a shield world known as Requiem, thinking a broadcast satellite would allow them to communicate with Infinity. As it turns out, a dangerous Forerunner had been locked away and had used Infinity's signal to trick the Chief into freeing him. This Forerunner, a general known as the Didact, was determined to wipe out humanity, believing them to be a threat to the galaxy worse than the Flood. When Infinity was sucked into Requiem, the Chief tried to get the ship's captain, Andrew Del Rio, to see how dangerous the Didact was, but Del Rio wouldn't hear it. His priority was to get Infinity and her crew home. The Chief instead decided to stay on Requiem, doing what he could to fight off the Didact. Though their efforts were great, Cortana's deteriorating state prevented her and the Chief from stopping the Didact's departure from Requiem. As the Didact left, the Chief and Cortana hitched a ride on a trailing Covenant vehicle. The Didact immediately headed for a human space station where an ultimate Forerunner weapon had been found. Called the Composer, it would allow the Didact to end the perceived threat humanity posed. After recovering the Composer, the Didact headed to Earth, with plans to unleash its power. The Chief and Cortana followed close, but could not stop the Composer's activation. As Earth began to feel the devastating power of the Forerunner weapon, Cortana was able to split off parts of herself, the rampant parts, giving the Chief a straight shot at the Composer and the Didact. In a last-ditch effort, the Chief blew a nuke within the Didact's ship, destroying it, the Composer, and seemingly, the Didact too. The Chief was only spared by the last efforts of Cortana, using Forerunner slipspace technology to teleport the Chief away from the ship at the last second. She died that the Chief, that John, could live. John had always been more machine than human, Cortana ironically acting as his connection to humanity. Now, with seemingly nothing left to connect to, John is set on a path of self-discovery, while the galaxy is set on the path of a new war with an unknown enemy.
Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. It means a lot. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and maybe share it around on whatever social media you choose. Your support is greatly appreciated. I cannot stress that enough. Thanks for watching.